Welcome to this episode of Wax Pro UNCUT. My name is Rachael.
And I'm Erica.
And today we have a very special guest, Tyler Afus. This is actually my first time meeting Tyler, but he knows Erica. So maybe you guys can tell us how you know each other.
Yeah, sure. Tyler?
Yeah, so I'm part of a franchise company called Lime Painting, and my wife and I own 6 locations, 3 in Colorado, and we're starting 3 more here in the greater Phoenix area. And Erica has been a good friend of mine, but also our business coach, helping us scale, helping us hire a team and put process in place to be successful. So it's been quite the journey.
Oh, thank you. So you are our first male guest on the show.
Yes, welcome.
So,
Kudos.
woo. Milestone. Yeah, so lime painting. Tell us a little bit about what you do, why you got into lime painting.
Yeah. Well, I got into lime painting because I was attending Denver Seminary at the time, and I was hoping to graduate and either become a professor or become a pastor of some kind. And while I was at school, they were suggesting that if you wanted to go into ministry, a great way to do that was bivocationally. And so the idea was that because the American church is slowly, the funds are slowly going away, the best way to go into ministry is to actually start a business, get it profitable, remove yourself, and then you could pastor a church without needing to be paid for that. And so that was the goal at the beginning. And I met the CEO of Lime through church, and I knew that he was planning on franchising at some point. And so after about a year of chatting with him, getting to know a little bit more about him and his business, decided to take the leap and leave finance, which is the industry that I was in before, joined Lime. And after my first year, I'd broken rookie records and had a successful first year. And so my wife and I ended up investing in 2 locations of Lime, and that was in Boulder and Fort Collins, Colorado. And then my second year, I actually continued to work for home office as a general manager before I launched. And so that really helped equip me to go into business ownership.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you were in corporate America, quote unquote, at some point.
Yes.
So what was that like? And then what gave you that confidence to make that leap of faith into ownership?
Well, corporate America, it really was a good opportunity. I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about how businesses grow and how they scale. But for me, you and I have the same profile. We like entrepreneurship and we like freedom. And I knew long term that being in corporate America wasn't for me. And so, again, I was looking for a way to get into vocational ministry while also being able to provide for my family. And so it seemed like business ownership was the right route for that. So
Right. And so now that you are an owner, what are some things that you wish maybe you had known earlier on before, fully committing to ownership?
Well, I had a lot of really good mentors in my life who were business owners, and they were able to provide information to me on some of the things that I could expect. I knew that I couldn't have a plan B, and I needed to work around the clock. So from the time I'm waking up till the time I'm going to bed, even when it looks like we're not working, we are. And so that it just takes 100% of your commitment. I think some of the things that maybe I wish I would have learned is really how to navigate customer service, particularly with our target market. So we're working with 1%ers. They all have lawyers. They all have very high expectations. And so just learning how to navigate that world well. But throughout my experience at Lime, you learn through failure, and so I see failure as actually a great opportunity to grow. And in the end, you can always learn from those experiences. So
Right. No, that's awesome. And so you've mentioned your wife, and I know her very well, Amanda. So what can you give our listeners, our viewers, advice on when it comes to spousal support? If you are in a relationship and entrepreneurship, what kind of guidance can you give our viewers?
I think being thorough before you go into business with your spouse is really important. Most businesses fail, and so you have to have the conversation of, hey, if something goes wrong, if we don't succeed and the odds are against us, is this going to wreck our marriage? Are we going to come together and work together through the good times and the bad times? And so for us, we have a lot of folks around us that are encouraging us and have really equipped us to work together, because we've had the highs and we've had the lows. But throughout all of it, our marriage was always top priority, regardless of what was going on around us. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's super important.
So do you work together then?
We do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I guess the other thing I should say is that we have very different skill sets, and that's something to consider too. We both kind of stay in our own lane, if you will. So she's really our COO. She's very intelligent. She was valedictorian of our high school, and I always joke with people that we had one thing in common. Neither one of us had a B, but she was valedictorian and I wasn't. So, so when it comes to the details and the logistics of the business, I stay in my own lane. But when it comes to sales and marketing and hiring a team and training them and pushing them, that is more my lane. And because we stay in our lane, there's really not a lot of overlap and there's mutual respect. And so I think that's another thing to really consider is, can you see yourself going into business with your spouse, and do your skill sets complement each other? And if they don't, that's okay. But again, having a plan, being thorough up front, and making sure you know what you're getting yourself into.
Well, and I think that is really important just for anyone, whether it's a spouse, a best friend, whoever, anyone that you're going into business with, to know your skill sets and know how you can play with each other and filling the gaps of areas you might need. If you need to hire a financial advisor, or you need to hire someone to do your marketing and your sales because that's not your strong suit, so that you just need to have all your ducks in a row, whether it's with your spouse or your best friend, or like I said, anyone helping you with your business.
Yeah.
Super important.
Absolutely. I have a question for you, Rachel, because obviously, Eric, who we've mentioned a few times on the podcast, is your spousal support.
Yes.
And so he's not in business with you. So what advice do you have for, say, a gal going into business, trying to open up her own wax suite and has a partner, right? Like,
Yes.
What advice can you give about that?
Well, again, like just knowing exactly what your skill set is and who you need to hire to help you outside of that. So when Eric started Boss Salon, it was his concept. He did hair, and I had my own Boss Aesthetics, but wasn't in the same building. As Boss Salon grew and I got brought in, there was, super hard conversations and things we had to figure out of like, is this ours? Is this yours? Are we running it together? Am I just a counterpart? All of those things. So whether it's your spouse or just any business partner, you have to have very clear lines drawn of who's responsible for what. So that would be my advice, is having those conversations and know your job title and what you're in charge of going in, I think.
And I just want to add that, myself as a non-married person, I've been married before and I've been single and I've dated. As I've been an entrepreneur, it's super important that whoever you let in your life, whether that's, again, business partners, friends, or your spouse who you're dating, that it's someone positive that's going to support your vision, and it's not always going to make sense to them. There's going to be a lot of times you lose these people in your life because they think, you're putting the business before me. You don't have enough time for me. You work crazy hours. I need more attention. And so just know and prepare yourself for those conversations and the possibility that, the men that you're dating or women that you're dating may not be able to be by your side through the whole journey. And so that would be my advice is, be wary who you allow in your life, and just know they're not all going to last, and some will be great, and some will give you a lot of motivation and support and understand and help you and be by your side on a laptop, like making notes as you're talking, and just completely like help you out. So I think that's super important to know in entrepreneurship, who you surround yourself with.
Yeah, I agree. Do you guys have kids?
We do. So we have a 5-year-old turning 6 in September, and then we have an almost 3-year-old this month. So
ours are so I have a 7-year-old and an almost 3-year-old, so similar. But I was going to relate it back to that. It's like when you have kids and you find out who your friends are, where you're like, you have all these friends, then you have children, and if they don't, it really is kind of this clear line in the sand of, oh, I really enjoy you and I wish the best for you, and I enjoyed the time that we had together, but sometimes it just, you're not on the same path. And that is, I think with entrepreneurship as well, your friends, if you don't surround yourself with people that want the same things, I'm not saying you have to only hang out with estheticians or people in the industry, but it just, sometimes there are people that will not benefit your journey in any way if you continue to hang out with them. If they're not career driven or, want more for themselves, it's just hard. They drag you down and you don't even realize it until you kind of stop surrounding yourself with them. So
question for both of you, being business owners with children.
Yes.
How do you balance that? Because we're on 24/7, right? From the time you wake up and time you go to sleep, even your dreams are all about business.
Yeah.
And, you can't sleep sometimes because of your business. So how do you ensure you have that healthy relationship and that time with your kids?
I think we do a good job of following an ideal calendar. And for us, both of our girls are in school. So one's in daycare, one is in the public school system. And so in the morning, we're able to wake up earlier than they wake up, and we're able to get some work done and kind of plan for the day. And then we take turns taking them to school and packing their lunches and doing all the things that are required. But once we drop them off, we're really grinding. We know that our time is limited. And then we pick them up from school, and we're very present with them, and we'll hang out with them until around 7 or 8 at night. And being my business coach, one of the things that you've shared with me is like, hey, go on a date with your daughters, as often as you can. And so oftentimes we'll go on a bike ride, or we'll go to the park, or I'll take them to the pool or something like that, after work, so that they still have time with dad. And then also, honestly, sometimes we take them to job sites and we see what it's like, and we teach them business. And, I want my daughters to be as smart and driven, as successful as my wife. And so it's fun to do business with them. Sometimes they're coloring in the office when we're working at night, but we're still able to, be with them and provide the support that they need. And then, of course, they go to bed, and that's more time for us to, put another hour or two in each evening. So we're able to integrate both into our lives, I think, without compromising either one. So I think it's just planning.
Planning is everything. It really is. You said the calendar. I'm like, oh my God, my marriage changed when we got a shared calendar. I was like, for the love of God, how do you not know my schedule? It's like, it's the same schedule. So that is huge. Yes, just overly communicate of like having the powwow on Sunday night of like, here's what it looks like. The nice thing, like you said, you've got your schedule of like Eric drops off every morning, but I wake up with them. I do breakfast, lunch. He takes them to school. Like you just have to have your very clear jobs set in stone, or else there's lots of, things that kind of get fallen by the wayside. But it is hard. It's really hard to balance it all. And I think we do a good job because we work for ourselves. It's nice, the freedom and the flexibility to have to reschedule, a client or a day of work if somebody is sick or there's really nobody else that can help. Community is everything. Like, I don't know if you guys have parents here, but we have my dad and my sister and my mother-in-law who help us tremendously. That's nice to have extra help. But like you said, my kids have been in the salon since they could talk. Like Penny sweeps hair, and I don't really bring Bennett because he's crazy, but soon enough he'll be in there, I'm sure. But yes, just integrating them into it all so that they can see like how hard we work and how far the salon has come, and we do it all for them.
Yeah.
So
that's so beautiful.
Yeah.
So let me ask you guys this. So do your kids ever ask you like what you do for work? Like, do they understand that you're a business owner, or do they think you have a job?
I would say our daughters are starting to figure out that we're business owners. We have our team over at our home often. We'll have team dinners. We bring our daughters there, and so they're starting to build relationships with some of our employees. But as far as really understanding what we do, I'm pretty sure our daughters think that we like physically paint houses and install gutters, and so I think they're still learning that like we're providing the marketing, the sales, the pricing, the quality control, but we're not necessarily doing the work ourselves. And really we're training others on how to do that. So so over time we're trying to remove ourselves further and further away from being in the field so that we can work on the business. But Yeah, I think I'm pretty confident that they know that we at
Right.
least own a business.
The gist.
Yeah.
And what about for you?
Well,
Because
no,
how do you
it's-
explain that to your kids? You wax,
Well,
right?
Penny is funny because she's like, "You touch what? You do what? You touch butts?" And I'm like, "Well, there's more to it than that. I'm an esthetician. I do skincare, whatever." I mean, with Eric, yeah, Daddy's a hair cutter. Like she's just said that since she could talk.
Right.
So yes, but no, I don't think that they fully understand that. Like, well. Yeah, she does. Well, so our salon is called Boss Salon, and so she's Daddy's the boss. But I don't think she has any concept of like that Eric ever worked for somebody else. Like, she's just always known it as the Boss Salon, and Daddy's
Right.
the boss of Boss Salon.
Does Penny understand like you remove hair?
Yeah,
For a
yeah,
living?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. She's like, why? I'm like,
Why?
we'll talk about it later.
You'll understand.
She's like, can you do mine then? I'm like, no,
God,
you don't
no.
need it yet. No, but no,
That's funny.
it's interesting.
So, where do you guys go for motivation and support? Being that you're both similar, right? You're both married, you have kids, you're business owners, and sometimes our gas tanks at like E, right? So, where do you dig for motivation and support? Are there any like authors or podcasts? Like, what do you do to get that energy?
So I think one of the nice things about being a part of a franchise company is that there is a community of other owners that you can lament with when times are a little bit rough, but also not just lament, problem solve. Most of the owners have been through what you're going through. And then also celebrating with the owners, celebrating their success, having them celebrate yours. Kind of outside of, our little Lime bubble. We attend a community group, so every Tuesday night we get together with a bunch of couple singles as well. And they're really people over the last 4 or 5 years that we spent a lot of time with, and they've provided a lot of support. I mean, one of the things that I think sometimes perhaps people don't realize is that like you are actually human as an owner. And I say that because since we become owners, we've lost grandparents. I lost my father a year and a half ago. My wife's mom had a stroke. And so, handling the difficulties of life outside of work, for us, it was really important that we had a community around us that was there to really encourage us. So that's been huge. And then family, they've been there. My brother and I actually own one of the locations together, and he's been, a big support in my life along with his wife, Camilla. So that's been beneficial. And in terms of motivation, I would say the reason I got in, and actually when I first bought the business, we did a video on this, and I didn't even know I was going to participate in this, but it was really to provide financial opportunity for our family, and I said extended family. And so what's cool about that is I was able to hire my mom. She was my first employee. My second one was my brother, and now my wife's a part of the team, and my sister-in-law is a part of the team, and wouldn't be surprised if one of my other sisters gets involved. And then also, like I said earlier, being able to get into vocational ministry, perhaps planning a church or pastoring a church without actually having to be compensated is a huge motivator. And then also, when I was hiring family, I just felt a tremendous amount of pressure, but it gave me purpose, and I didn't want to let anyone down around me. And so I didn't want to have any kind of excuse as to why they weren't going to be successful. And so I think just realizing that people are relying on you in the business to provide for their families. And so when we have a salesperson come in and they're not successful, that really hurts. But I try to do everything that I can to set them up for success. So that's really my motivation. But I would say that over time also you need discipline, really, because there's going to be days you're really not motivated. There's plenty of days where I'm like, man, I just worked a 70-hour week. The last thing I want to do is get up again. But it's discipline. You know that over long periods of time, if you're consistent, you might have your ups and downs, but overall, you're going to be pretty successful. So I think.
How many employees do you have?
In northern Colorado, we have 10. Colorado Springs, we have 4, but again, that's split. And then Phoenix, we're launching here next month.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, it's a lot of people that are relying on you. It's
Yeah.
hard. You're like, I don't want to be in charge of this many people. And you're like, I did this to myself. I built this business. What am I doing?
Right.
I know. It's a lot. I think I have a very similar response in like with Boss Salon, but my husband and then my sister works for us. And friends that are childhood friends of my husband's are stylists. And so looking to our community within the salon to, keep it rolling and what's our why and why are we passionate about this. It's also a little bit different and that's like a creative industry, right? So there's anytime we do a hair show or go to an event, I feel this like fire lit beneath everybody again, where you can kind of just get into the routine of it being a job and just a thing. And then you get really, truly inspired of the actual craft of what we're doing. And then you go, oh, I really like it. Okay. It makes all the hard stuff worth it. But it's hard. There are times where it's really hard to be the boss. You don't want to be the boss anymore, but.
For sure. So it sounds like both of you understand your why. And that's actually one of the early chapters in Wax Pro Academy is understanding your why. Because there's going to be several days, weeks, months where you just fall into that funk of, oh my gosh, this is really tough. Like, why am I doing this? I could go work for someone else and count on a salary and be okay, right? So going back to the why, like for me, it's always my family, right? I'm like, first generation and just my parents, how hard they've worked and knowing just one generation ago, my mom was in Mexico, right? So it's like having this opportunity to be here and build something and seeing, a lot of my family that don't have degrees that work really hard and are working their 60s and 70s and don't have a 401k and don't have a future really planned out. I feel like I've got the brains, education, the support. Like I have to do this for my family. Like I would be letting down a lot of people. So I could resonate with, the pressure of hiring family and going into business with your family, your wife, right? Like that could literally ruin a marriage, right? So that pressure alone is motivation. And so some people use pressure as like this negative word,
Right.
but we're diamonds made, right?
Yeah. Oh, it's beautiful.
Ooh. Wow. Oh my gosh, who am I? So I'm curious, Tyler, do you have like questions about Wax Pro? I mean, we're in completely different worlds and industries.
Yeah, totally.
So that's just kind of off the cuff question, but I'm thinking you're sitting here probably wondering a little bit more about the industry, the creative industry.
Yeah.
Creative
right?
industry, yeah.
So do you have any questions about us or Wax Pro or our industry?
What is your mission and vision with the business, and what are you hoping to achieve not only in your lives but the lives of others?
Yeah, mission and vision and hoping to achieve. That's a big
Well,
question.
I know right off, like the reason I wanted to build Wax Pro Academy was to make waxing easier for anyone in the industry, whether that's a new grad, whether that's a salon owner who wants to bring a waxer in and doesn't know how to train them. It was super important to me to give them a skill set, a training guide of like, here's how to be a better waxer and refine your skills. And we've talked a lot about in our other videos and podcasts and things of feeling like we were really failed in our like educational experience of going to aesthetic school, that they just fell super short in the actual skill set that they gave us. It's all about state board, how to pass sanitation, not about like how to weigh a wax strip, how to like handle a pregnant client who wants their Brazilian, how, all of these like things that are huge and make up way more of the industry than just, did you sanitize your hands, right? So I'm like, we have to build this thing to make these girls feel like they're prepared for the industry.
Yeah.
And I feel like we have done that. I feel very confident that whether you want to start your own business or go work for somebody but still take our course, you would come out of it feeling like you're more prepared than before you took it.
Yeah.
For sure.
My literal vision, like I picture a student who purchased our course, was maybe apprehensive because, it's not $9.99, right?
Right.
And going through it and feeling like, holy smokes, that was worth every penny. I'm here now because I had the foundation to begin with. And thinking about that person being successful and being happy they made that investment,
Totally.
that's my literal vision. Multiplied across, the country or the world, right? It's online. Anyone could purchase the course. But that's my vision, is that empowerment, picturing these, students become business owners and being successful. I mean, that's truly my vision. Literally, the money to me is irrelevant. It's just knowing that that's how we gave back. Like we've literally put everything into this course to help these students because we were both vulnerable before. We were both a slave to the corporate chain, and we were both, super scared to go off on our own, and, just kind of removing that apprehension and fear from students. That's my vision and my mission, and I know that's Rachel's as well. We've spoken about this in length. So Wax Pro long term, we'd like to add on some sectors, which we'll talk about later on, but there's definitely phase 2 and 3 with even more support, resources that we're going to provide. So pretty excited about that.
I can relate to that because when I was in finance, your curriculum was just to pass the exam so that
Right.
you could get licensed. But then you get out and you're like, okay, well, how do I actually communicate with clients? How do I actually advise them? What's practical?
Yeah.
How do I become successful sustainably? And so I totally get that. I think it's really cool
Yeah,
what you guys
successful,
are doing.
sustainable. That is the best way to describe it. Because again, it's like whether you go work for somebody, I just want to take out the bit where they have to go work for a big name corporation. So you could go work for a small mom and pop. You could come work for Boss Salon if you want. But you will take the course to train you and feel like you're prepared and not have to go get this training that you didn't in whatever, industry that you're in. If there was a platform that gave you all the ins and outs, the tips and tricks, the step-by-step, hold your hand, all the behind the scenes, it would just make any industry better, I think.
Yeah.
So.
The thing is, most people don't want to give you their secret sauce.
Right.
They don't want to tell you how they got success. They won't, in fact. And it's no, disrespect to franchises. Obviously, I am
Right.
a franchise business coach, right? And I've worked for franchises, and I've mentioned other episodes. I love it and I get it, but even in a franchise, they can't give you every single tip. How can you get everything out of your brain into a system or a document? There's things you forget you did along the way building a franchise company. You're like, oh yeah, we did used to do it this way, and there is no SOP on that. And man, that's a whole piece of education I couldn't get out of my brain into a system, not because they're withholding it on purpose, but it's impossible to put everything out. Unless you're me and Rachel, and you've sat down for literally
2 years.
2 years straight,
Well, and I feel like that's part of the problem, why it's taken us so long, because we're almost done, and we're like, but wait,
there's more. Yeah,
it's
for
just
sure.
never going to be done.
It's
And
never enough.
I know. I was just telling your wife, I'm just ready for the next phase of it. I know that, we're towards the end, right? We're launching on June 15th. It's almost there, but I know the moment it's done, we already have a list of we're going to redo that, and we need to re-add this, and the phase 2 of adding things
Right.
in. But yeah, it's just the project that's
We're trying to
never
give
ending.
everyone the secret sauce, is what I'm saying.
Trying to give you the
That's
sauce.
hard.
Yeah.
So I want to bring it back to Tyler. So tell us about pros and cons of being a business owner.
I think the pros are the impact that you can have, the opportunity that it does provide for you and for others. Again, I like freedom. I like my time. So I don't mind working extra hours, but if my daughter is sick from school and I need to pick her up and take her to the doctor, I love that I don't have to ask anyone for that. Pouring into other people, seeing their success. We had a gentleman that had a really good year last year. He left and went with an industrial coatings company, but his salary is enormous. And so celebrating that success, seeing my brother become an owner in 3 different states is really, really rewarding for me. I think the financial benefits are important to me. And then also through business, it gives you a platform. I'm on this podcast today because I think in large part I'm a business owner. So it's given me a little bit different of a platform than I had before becoming an owner. The list goes on. There's so many benefits to it. I think the cons are when it's your business, the buck stops with you. Your business is either successful or it fails because of you, and you can't hide. There's no hiding. I think sometimes when you're an employee, it's a little bit easier to hide. It's a little bit easier to blame leadership on your lack of success. And by the way, I've been there, so I'm not taking shots. Also, I think as a leader, just realistically, having been in corporate America, there's going to be gossip about you. I hope, I could be naive that that doesn't happen with our employees, with our team. They all love me. They love my wife. But I think that's just a part of being an owner. You're a leader. It's no different than some of our politicians. You're going to be critiqued regardless. And so you do have to be comfortable with yourself, and you're going to make decisions that might prove to be wrong, but ultimately you're the one in charge. So that's kind of what I like, but it's also potentially a con. And then again, the risk. It's generally far less risky being an employee, being an owner. I know my wife and I, we've invested everything into our businesses, so we kind of have to be successful. But that's my list that comes to mind.
That's good. I mean, that's pretty solid. That's a solid answer. I would say I feel the exact same way. The risk is so scary. That's where I don't do well.
Right.
Like, what if we fail?
Yeah.
It's scary. Where Eric's like, no, this is going to be great. It's going to be fine.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I suffer on like the other side. I'm like, last dollar, I'm going to put it on me. I'm going to quadruple that.
That's why we work well together.
Yeah, for sure. But if I didn't have Rachael to balance me out, I mean, I'd probably be in a different position, right? So back to that,
The
balance.
Yeah.
So are you, Erica, more of the gas and Rachel's more of the brake? Like,
yes, I'm the barricade.
the
Don't go any further. Wait, please.
Yeah, I don't think it's that extreme though. I don't think there's ever been a time where you're like, Erica, you're completely off the rails.
No,
like, what's happening?
There was the one where you like texted me 75 times. I had like 3 missed calls, and then the last text was, "I'm quitting my job tomorrow.
Yeah,
I'm going to quit my job and go all in a Wax Pro." And I was like, "Oh my god!" And then
was
her next
manic.
text was, "I'm so sorry, I was manic last night."
Yeah, I was just overwhelmed
like, "Oh my God."
with the amount of time that I needed for Wax Pro, and I have this, very time-consuming job that I do enjoy. Right? I've mentioned in another episode, I love franchise business coaching or business coaching in general. But when you realize, as a business owner, how much time and energy it requires, and I felt like I was failing Wax Pro because I was incapable of it. But I switched my mindset and I said, all right, I have some PTO. I'm going to put in this many days and completely shut off my other job and put it into my business. So it can be done simultaneously, right? You can build your business while you're working in another job, but it's going to require some really late hours, right?
It's just all about the sacrifice. Like
Right.
what's your why?
And so did I come, like in the last week, obviously, Rachael was out of town for a week, and that's what's really nice about having a business partner is the business is still going while my business partner's gone, and vice versa. Next week I'm going to be at the lake, right? So Rachel's going to pick up for me. But when it's just you, you have to literally, tighten up your boots, strap them on, and it's you versus you all day long. Like, no one's going to say, hey, you know what? You should probably not do that and stay home and work. And I know you already worked 8 hours of your day job, but it's time to do 8 hours of your own business. And you're probably only going to sleep 6 hours at best. But at the end, it's worth it. No one's there to help you navigate that mindset. It's just you. So that ties me into my next question. What is the importance to you in surrounding yourself around like-minded people?
It's really important because I remember hearing from business owners that were further along than me. It's really lonely as you continue to grow. There's fewer people that can even relate to what you're going through, and also they are going to think that you're selfish. There's going to be all sorts of things that come with being in a leadership role and growing, and so. I've surrounded myself with pastors just because of what I want to get into. But what's really interesting about planning churches is that in a lot of ways we don't like to think of church this way, but it is a lot like growing a business. You're trying to find an audience and bring enough value where people actually want to hear what you have to say. And you hope that it's transformative in their lives for the good. But there's a lot of people. Churches are messy. And so I've surrounded myself with pastors that have grown churches fairly rapidly and fairly large, and they have to hire a team, and they have to train pastors on how to preach and how to care for people, and how to scale the church. So right now, one of my pastors, he's part of an organization called Cultivate, and they work with young leaders planting churches, and he'll help them plant churches all over the world. And so
That's what it's called, plant a church?
It's called Cultivate is the organization.
Okay.
Yeah.
But is that like a normal terminology for churches, like planting a church?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
that's new
basically
to
like
me. I never knew that.
Yeah, it's like starting a brand new business.
Right.
So
New location.
yes, new location.
Okay.
So that's really huge. And then just practically, we spend a lot of time with entrepreneurs. Just as you attend different conferences and different events, you tend to be around people who are doing what you're doing, and they're able to relate to what you're doing, but also, again, they're able to help you problem solve. And so what I like to do is I like to surround myself with people that are maybe on the same level, but I also like to have 2 or 3 people that I know are further ahead and they're where I would like to be, but I'm not.
Yeah, no, it's a good rule of thumb for sure.
Yeah.
Love that.
So, kind of wrapping this up here, our last question: what advice would you give to a new entrepreneur?
I would say don't be afraid to fail. Don't hold back. Just work as hard as you can. Be thorough. Surround yourself with winners, and don't have a plan B. If it fails, it fails. My wife and I talk about it all the time. I don't think we're gonna go homeless. Somebody will take us in. We'll get back on our feet.
We're gonna
right?
be okay.
But anytime I see somebody with a plan B and they have 1 foot in and 1 foot out, they always fail.
100%.
That's so interesting, because my mindset would be like, always have a plan B. You
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
to, but no, if you don't, then it just doesn't leave any room
No,
for.
I am the same way. But we literally do
Yeah.
have the same profile because
Yeah.
we've taken a personality assessment. But I forget where I first heard that, but I've told other people about this concept. It's like you kind of let your foot off the gas a little bit when
If
you're
you're
like,
holding the
well,
brake.
if this doesn't work, then I already know, here's my out. No, all in, baby.
All in. Well, I like that. It changed my mind for sure. So that's great.
Awesome. So, any last minute thoughts or questions or anything before we close out here?
No, I just think it's really cool what you guys are building here, and podcast is really, I think, engaging with your audience, and hopefully this was an interesting episode, and thanks for having me on. And
Thank you.
It
Thank
was
you
great
for being
having
here.
you. Yeah, appreciate it. And thanks, Amanda, for supporting Tyler and being here as well. So awesome. We'll see you guys soon.